Hello, this is Ron Stallworth calling. Who am I speaking with?
This is David Duke.
Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. That David Duke?
God. Last time I checked. What can I do you for?
Well, since you asked, I hate blacks. I hate Jews, Mexicans and Irish, Italians and Chinese. But my mouth to God's ears, I really hate those black rats. And anyone else, really, that doesn't have pure white Aryan blood running through their veins.
I'm happy to be talking to a true white American.
God bless white America. The KKK is planning an attack.
How do you propose to make this investigation?
We'll establish contact over the phone. We'll need a white officer to play me when they meet face to face.
You for the white race, Ron?
Oh, hell yeah.
So there becomes a combined Ron Stallworth.
Can you do that?
With the right white man, we can do anything.
This is Trinidad the Island Man, your Island Man, coming to you live once again from beautiful Hawaii here on the island of Oahu, bringing you, yes you, the best movie reviews on the entire island of Oahu. And yes, this is Trinidad the Island Man, your Island Man. And today, Friday the 10th of August, I saw a phenomenal movie that I cannot recommend to you enough. So remember our rating scale. Shock a thumbs up. It's good to see. I recommend it. Shock a thumbs down. It's bad to see. It's junk. And well, for Blackkklansman, it is, as you already know, a strong shock a thumbs up. Again, shock a thumbs up all the way for this movie. Blackkklansman, based on a true story, directed by the great Spike Lee, who we have not seen his work for a little bit of some time. And let me just say this about his directing in this film, his use of cinematography. Every shot tells you something about this movie. It is beautifully shot. The scenery, the scope, it is set in Colorado Springs in Colorado against a very beautiful backdrop. And, you know, this is a political message of a story, again, based on a true story. This stars John David Washington, Adam Driver, Lori Harrier, Topher Grace from That 70s Show, and Ryan Eggold from previously The Blacklist, I believe season 5 or 6 from the beginning until he got killed off in season 5 or 6. And this movie is incredible. It stars a whole bunch more people, and I cannot urge you to go see this movie, you know, any stronger than a shock and thumbs up. But if I could, I definitely would. It is right now only playing at the Kahala, which I think is a crime in itself. This should be, I expected it to be everywhere. I think it is playing over at Ward. But why it's not over at Dole, why it's not over at Pearl Ridge, why mainly only over at Kahala Mall. Sure, it has the feel and the of a message movie. So maybe they think it's a small artsy film, but no, this is a significantly socially relevant movie. Set in the 70s, again, based on a true story, where the first Colorado Springs black man becomes a police officer and an undercover detective there, and infiltrates the Ku Klux Klan there in Colorado Springs during the 70s. And works his way all the way through to the head of the Ku Klux Klan, David Duke. The same David Duke that in years past have ran for political office, who is still significantly strong in the Klan today, still the head leader, and still, influencing many political candidates right now, and shaping, unfortunately, a lot of what's happening, not only in Washington, but throughout the country. So I had not seen this person, John David Washington, before, but, so to me, this is his breakout role, and he is incredible in this. He is, of course, the black police officer that goes undercover, basically through, as you've seen in the trailers, telephone contact with David Duke and other members of the Ku Klux Klan. And then once he gains foothold within the organization through the telephone and, some type of bonding with these people over the phone, just because of his charisma and magnetism with these individuals, he is able to gain their trust, and they want to meet him face to face, bring in fellow police officer, fellow undercover officer, Adam Driver, who becomes basically his white face for the group, and they are able to work their way through the organization and essentially foil a terrible bomb plot that the Ku Klux Klan had planned and actually, in real life, attempted to carry out in the 70s. And of course this might have thwarted, other follow-up plans. We will never know for certain, and I'm sure at least put a damper at the time on David Duke's ambitions for furthering his own political career and, pushing forward with the Ku Klux Klan as well. And anyone who knows anything over the decades, the past 3-4 decades with Spike Lee, you will know that all of his films on some level show and display a meaningful political, social insight into the impacts of, black men and women here in the United States. One could say of anyone who is persecuted, you could say today, the immigrants coming in, but primarily historically, he is always, him being, Spike Lee being African American, does continue to bring and hone those points, and bring those, that animosity from the different society of, white society and black society to light, and brings it into the light, out of the shadows, so that everyone can take a look at it. Again, Spike Lee does a beautiful job. All the actors are wonderful in this, and it will be a terrible disservice if this is not nominated and does not win an Academy Award, at least for Best Directing, maybe even Best Film. That is how much you should go and see this movie, because it is so good. And the fact that it is based on a true story is just icing on the cake that much further. Spike Lee, I don't know how much of this was actually true, because it is based on the book by the actual detective who had done this undercover operation. But Spike Lee directs this, and the actors bring forth a sense of humor, a sense of tragedy, a sense of moral disgust, essentially, with how the Ku Klux Klan, is realistically portrayed in this film, as it should be. You know, it should turn your stomach, and if it doesn't turn your stomach, there is something wrong with you. You know, often at times watching this film, I felt disgusted at my fellow man, at what you could see, you know, one would assume that I would represent in society. But I assure you I do not, you know, on that kind of level. You know, but Adam Driver, John David Washington being the two core characters in this, and one black and white, you know, merging those two identities together for the undercover operation, forming and forging a friendship beyond that of their work is just amazing. And I think it shows how the two, you know, how the two sides of America can embrace each other against such despicable groups and organizations, such despicable and despisable philosophies that are out there, unfortunately still out there today. You know, although this plot was foiled, there are scenes, real life scenes, footage at the end of this movie of the Charlottesville tragedy that took place just 1 year to the date of the opening of this film. 2017 in August was that fateful march in Charlottesville that the Ku Klux Klan, the neo-Nazis, basically clashed with pro-right protesters. And both sides were left bloodied, but mainly the stain that was left on America when the president spoke and chose not to clearly denounce the violence on those who have started it, aka the Ku Klux Klan and those neo-Nazi wannabes. You know, did a great disservice to all of us as Americans. And that is a heck of a sight to see this movie end on, after, again, the success of the real life operation and the beauty of this movie, how, you know, yes, by working together we can overcome these obstacles, but as is so much in real life, did we actually overcome it? As we see, you know, 30 years, 40 years later, these problems are more coming out of the shadows. You know, people can walk around, you know, spewing such hatred openly in public without any repercussions. You know, and that is what we as American citizens have to watch out for. We have to hold our political parties, our political candidates accountable, and we have to, more importantly, hold ourselves accountable. You know, this movie is a mirror of society, and it is a mirror showing us images of ourselves that, you know, certainly we do not want to see, but we have to see. We have to be more visible that this is actually happening, so that we can ignore the ugly truth that despite President Obama's great successes, you know, since his leaving office, most of those successes have been turned back, and they will continue to be turned back, and we have to fight politically, emotionally, to preserve those freedoms for everyone. And if not, we are shown by just looking at our recent past, say there in the 70s, or say there in 2017 in Charlottesville, what can happen when we choose to ignore that and just let the clock turn back on everyone. Again, shock a thumbs up for Blackkklansman. You know, there's violence in this movie, and there is some language in this movie. But I mean, for older children and teenagers, you know, if you want them to know about society, if you want them to know about, you know, political implications of groups and interactions between groups, this is a teaching movie for your children. I urge you to go see it and make the decision if you want to take your children to go see it. Definitely at teenage age, these are concepts that, you know, even here in Hawaii, we are, you know, seeing take place almost on a daily basis in some parts of the islands, and we need to be aware of that and know that on the mainland it's much, much worse. Not saying that, you know, we're not immune, but with vigilance, which this movie can help, you know, proact that, we can continue to strive to what I think a lot of mainlanders feel is a more homogeneous population here on the islands that we have. You know, because certainly I am not the majority here. You know, your island man here is not the majority person, you know. And so I think that definitely does help. But there are those who would still push, you know, equality, you know, away. And that's what we have to continue to fight and strive for on all cases and all bases. All right, I'll get off my soapbox now. Remember to vote. The primaries are tomorrow, Saturday the 11th, for the primary elections. So vote at your polling place if you have not mailed or did the early ballot or early voting if you had done so already. But, you know, that's a piece of it that you can go ahead and put forth your voice, just like what is depicted in this this movie. People both on both sides of the extreme pushing their voice, and you know, you have to make yourself heard. And right now, tomorrow, that could be your vote. All right, well, enough of that. Definitely go ahead and see Blackkklansman. Shock a thumbs up. So good. Hopefully, by the end of the week, it'll go to Dole and various other locations for the film. But definitely look for it. You know, ask your theater when they're going to get it in. And this is a movie that I would not say just stream on iTunes. Don't just stream on Netflix. You want to go ahead and you want to buy this movie. You want to support this movie. And hopefully we'll see it at the Oscars next year. All right. Thank you so much. This is Trinidad the Island Man, your Island Man. Strong shock and thumbs up for Blackkklansman from Spike Lee. All right. Thank you so much, and aloha.